Okay, guys, we have to level set here. There's an excellent quote in finance that states, "Figures don't lie, but liars figure." And all is what this means is you can start with accurate financial data, but the data can easily be manipulated by someone knowledgeable and unscrupulous. Meaning, said another way, liars can do the figuring. And this is something that I don't think a lot of the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters really understand when they start analyzing alternate asset classes. You know, guys, one of the inherent risks, and I talk about this a lot on this channel, one of the inherent risks of investing in any type of alternate asset class, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's gold, whether it is antiques and collectibles, these are not regulated markets. And all the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters love it when they own something that goes up in value, it goes to the moon, they celebrate, and they think that they're geniuses. I hate to break it to you, but all of us that are speculating in video games, in Pokemon cards, in consoles, in Lego sets, we're all buying and holding the same stuff. This is all based on the greater fool theory. It's for the same reason why I do not like to invest in cryptocurrencies. It's the same reason why I don't invest in gold bullion. I invest in rare coins. I do not invest in plain bullion, either gold or silver. It's not for me. Now let's take this a step further, because I'm getting a lot of emails from people that are stating, "Sean, you don't know what you're talking about. I need you to tell me if antiques and collectibles are not the best asset class ever," or even you can substitute it with cryptocurrency. I've even had people try to use gold against me. How come my preferred asset class is beating out an S&P 500 index? I can show you in black and white. Here's all the data. Here's a fancy line graph that I pulled. You can see that an S&P 500 index got crushed. And if you would have put your money in Pokemon cards or Nike Air Jordans or Lego or video games or comic books, you would have outperformed the S&P 500 index fund over that same time period. And people want me to respond to this. So that's what this video is for. I am going to respond to you. First of all, the problem is with all these graphs being thrown around, whether it's sports cards, Pokemon cards, video games, whatever asset class we're talking about that trounced the S&P 500, you guys are not taking transaction costs into account. This is a major miscalculation that investors in antiques and collectibles specifically need to be aware of, because if you invest in an S&P 500 index fund, that has an expense ratio of 0.03%, which means on every $100,000 that you have invested in S&P 500 index fund, you're going to pay $30 per year. And there's no cost whatsoever if you go and click the sell button. When it comes to antiques and collectibles, you have to either list these items yourself on eBay, minimum 12.5 to 20% right there, or you got to consign them through an auction company. There's no guarantee what you're going to get. You're not going to get your money in most cases instantaneously. These items are illiquid for the most part. This is why I keep getting into debates with the Pokemon community. It's great. This is a 2000 Pokemon Gym Challenge Blaine's Charizard Holo First Edition in PSA Gem Mint 10 condition. This card's worth what right now? $3,800, $4,000 on the open market. I think I paid $3,300 or $3,400 for this particular card. Got news for you. It's by no means rare, even in PSA 10 condition. Go look up how many copies of this card exist in PSA 10 condition. There's hundreds of them out there. That does not mean that this particular item is rare or scarce by any means. We've done videos on this. And herein lies the problem of speculating on a lot of this stuff. We're all hoarding the same stuff. We all have all of this stuff in our collections, just waiting for the price to go up. And for the last 10 to 15 years, that has worked perfectly, especially with the rise of social media influencers, people that are priming the pump for everything from Rolex watches to Bitcoin to NFTs to Pokemon cards to Nike Air Jordans to comic books to Lego sets. If it is a mass-produced modern era collectible. I assure you, the market is being manipulated in some form. Maybe not always intentionally, but there are people going on social media telling other people, you can make a fortune in Lego sets. Or did you know if you buy these specific Nike Air Jordans and you keep them for a year or two, they're going to go up in value. Or if you invest in this sports card, it's guaranteed to go through the roof. There's a lot of people that are manipulating this data. Now we have to address some of the elephants in the room here. It is true. If you get in my DeLorean time machine and we go back to 1998, when Pokemon first premiered on the market, if you were a kooky dude back then and you were ahead of the curve and you were going and you were buying all of these cards, all of these booster boxes, and you were just putting them away in a closet and you were just putting them away in a storage unit, you've done really well. And all the data is going to show that you trounced the overall returns of the stock market in that same period, meaning from 1998 to today. The problem is, who could have predicted that Pokemon would have become the behemoth that it became today? And before you answer, remember, Rudy with Alpha Investments did a video where there was a time when Pokemon was not as valued as high as it is today, where he has a bathroom video where he stuffed all of his Pokemon investments, notice I'm using air quotes for that, into this bathroom and locked the door because he didn't even want to look at a lot of this stuff. And what happened? The pandemic came, people were stuck indoors, and a lot of people rediscovered trading cards. And trading cards, whether it's Pokemon cards, whether it's sports cards, became a top tier asset class. So now all that stuff went to the moon. Rudy with Alpha Investments, along with other people, myself included, we did very well on Pokemon. The problem is you cannot rely on that. There are no underlying cash flows. At any given time, the public sentiment can change when it comes to Pokemon cards. Meaning people may look at Pokemon and go, you know what? This just isn't for me anymore. I'm going to sell the collection. I'm getting out of this. Younger people may wake up and go, you know what? We got this newer thing over here that we're going after. Pokemon just doesn't have the same flavor as it did before. This is what a lot of you guys are not understanding. Give you another couple examples here. If you were a crazy kook who loved science fiction, growing up in the late 1970s, if you went to the movies and you saw this new quirky movie called Star Wars premiere and you got all into it and you went to Toys R Us, you went to KB Toys, and you bought all of the action figures, you bought all the play sets, and you kept them to today, and you're sending them off to AFA to get graded, spoiler alert, you're going to pay a fortune in grading fees. Nonetheless, even after we subtract grading fees, even after we subtract transaction fees, auction consignment fees, wherever you're selling these items, you have done phenomenal. But back in 1978, 1979, who could have predicted that Star Wars would still be a thing in the year 2024? I mean, if you guys recall, going back to when The Return of the Jedi was released, after that movie came out, there was a lull in Star Wars popularity. A lot of the toys ended up in the bargain bin. Even George Lucas said he's probably not going to revisit the franchise anytime soon. And to be fair, he didn't until 1999 with the release of Episode 1. He did the prequels, The Phantom Menace. So no one could have predicted the popularity of that market. During this same time period, people tried to invest in things like Pez, Beanie Babies, even MetaZoo. How did those particular collectibles turn out, comparing the returns to that of an S&P 500 index fund? A lot of you guys got lucky, and you seriously think that you're a genius. And what's really scary to me, I watch a lot of these videos from some of these young Pokemon collectors and investors in their 20s, and they seriously think their shit doesn't stink. Are you aware, when I was learning the trade from the age of 12, if social media, if YouTube would have been a thing, even at the age of 21, 22, because this was back in the 90s, you guys got to remember. I graduated high school in 1995. So we're talking back in the 90s, early 2000s when I was really getting into this, because at that particular point in time, I was in college, I had money coming in, I was really getting involved in these markets. I would have never thought to go to YouTube and say, hey, I'm a genius. I made all this money in vintage Atari games. Look at how vintage Atari games turned out. We all know Nintendo's king of the hill. Not Atari, but back in 1995, especially after the launch of the Atari Jaguar and subsequent failure, you still thought a lot of people that were collecting video games, well, they're not going to go after Nintendo. Atari's the first. They're going to go after Atari. That didn't happen. In 2004, 2005, prices crumbled. Today, there are Atari games out there that sell for a significant sum of money. But if you look at the overall returns, if you bought those games back in the 1990s, or even right around 2004, you made no money in that market. It was a complete wash when you factor in inflation and opportunity costs, because younger collectors are not going after Atari video games. This is a mistake that a lot of you are making. If you look at any asset class and you look at a specific time period, of course you can beat the S&P 500 index fund. Please stop coming into my comment section thinking it's a badge of honor. You are not a genius. You are somebody that got lucky due to the rise of alternate asset investing. And look around you. I'm right there with you. This is just one room in the many rooms of this house that are devoted to collecting categories. If I wanted to be a dick, I could film video after video in my video game room, in my Pokemon room, my Magic the Gathering room. I hold a tremendous amount of money in this stuff. The difference between me and the average speculator out there, I understand how these markets work, and I understand how to get around them, meaning how I get in, I get my money out, and then I go into something else. The problem with a lot of you guys is you worship the collectible. You're like a drug dealer that gets high off your own supply. It is not going to work. That is what was instilled in my head when I learned the antiques and collectibles trade at the ripe old age of 12. A lot of my mentors were highly successful. Some of them had collections valued in the 7 figures. Do you understand that in addition to those collections that were valued in the 7 figures, they also had 7 figures in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, index funds, and real estate? And if you gave them a choice to choose between the financial assets and the collectible assets, every single time, they would choose the financial assets. Because again, all these items that you see in this room, any item that makes up the antiques and collectibles trade, it is based on the greater fool theory. You have to be sure that someone's going to come into this market and want to pay a premium for the items you're selling. And for the record, I've done quite well. This is a factory sealed new Nintendo 3DS system. Look on eBay how much a factory sealed new 3DS system goes for. I paid less than $200 a piece for these, and I have multiple cases of them. I do very well in these markets, guys. The difference is I have a different mindset than a lot of the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters out there. I would not be going on a collecting forum claiming, here guys, Pokemon cards have crushed the S&P 500 index. Therefore, reserved investments is wrong. Is he? Or are you just looking at manipulated data? Again, if you were buying in the Pokemon in 1998 and you kept to now, you did very well. But those of you that bought into Pokemon during the pandemic highs, how are you doing now? Really, if you bought into vintage cards, come on guys, I've seen the prices that were paid during the pandemic for a lot of these vintage PSA 10 Pokemon cards. The prices did not hold. You're lying to yourself. The only reason you're turning a profit is because of the newer booster boxes that you were buying into just happen to continually go up in value. That trend can change at any time. Again, please understand, these are all speculative Fugazi assets with no underlying cash flows. A lot of you guys are trying to operate in capitalism, not understanding what capitalism is. It's called capitalism, meaning you take the capital and you invest in businesses real estate, resources that have underlying cash flows, and based on that capital that you put into those businesses, you pull out a return, a real return where you don't have to sell the asset to get that cash flow. That's the difference, guys. That's what you're missing. You are not a genius. You are not a unique snowflake, if you want me to quote Fight Club. You are just somebody that got lucky because you followed the crowd. And now, right now, all of us are all holding the same shit. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now when everybody starts trying to sell all this stuff into the market, claiming that it's rare, when simply the manufacturer just upped production and you guys all bought in. Why, they got record profits. Do you see where I'm going with this? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.